I'm JD Green. I've been a face on the radio in Vermont for well over 20 years. And although I've loved my career in radio, I had a vision about bringing my connection to the community to a different platform, to social media, where I could create a blueprint of a podcast that's something constantly evolving, knowing that there's always room for new experiences and learning, discovery, exploration, new questions to ask, and answers to be sought after. A program without limitations, but still with intention to tell a more in-depth story behind what makes us tick, what inspires us, what makes us realize that the what and when is only secondary to the how. And it's the how and the why that I want to uncover. It's my hope with this podcast that I can inspire, inform, that we can learn together and tell the bigger stories behind our lives. That's our story. My real story off the air. I'll try to push the boundaries, arouse your curiosity, and ask the questions you want answers to. Maybe questions no one's asked. The good and the not so good. What's going on in Vermont as well as across our great country. Things you'll agree with, things you might not. It's my hope to laugh with you, cry with you, entertain and enlighten you, but mostly learn with you. Please make sure to support your local public access TV station, subscribe to my YouTube podcast, Aired Out, engage by sharing your comments, and invite your friends to be part of it too. Thanks for tuning in. This is Aired Out. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being a part of the experience. It's Aired Out. I'm JD Green. Our sponsors, CBDcrave.com, Peak Entertainment of Vermont and New Hampshire, Fontaine Forestry and Millworks of East Montpelier, Fly on the Wall Productions, and where we are now, CVTV Public Access, Channel 192 and 194, and online, of course, at cvtv723.org. I am sitting next to an incredible guy, Jon Gailmor.
My dad departed early, and Mom checked out in haste. 1,000 things we left unsaid just weigh me down. They weigh me down. Children are my teachers, much wiser than their years. Thanks to them, I'm learning how to say it now. Well, the playground is a jungle where we can all be wild. Beware of bullies lurking on the prowl. I bottled up my anger, my fear I pushed way down. Got no more room to grow. Say it now. Say it now. Say it now. Anytime, anyhow. Grab the moment while you got it. Let 'em hear it. Say it now. How you feeling? Just set it free. Don't wait till it's a eulogy right now. Say it now. Say it now. Got people in my back and forth who've been there every time. They made the difference, helped me through somehow. If I don't up and tell them, then how are they to know? Can't wait another day, gotta say it now. Say it now, say it now, anytime, anyhow. Grab the moment while you got it, let them hear it, say it now. How you feeling? Just set it free, don't wait till it's a eulogy right now. Say it now, say it now. Well, the leaders make my blood boil, injustice rules the day. My sentiments are soiled beneath their plow. But what I think does matter, I'll whip my seeds around. They'll grow to mighty heights if I say it now. Say it now, say it now, anytime, anyhow. Grab the moment while you got it, let them hear it, say it now. How you feeling? Just set it free, don't wait till it's a eulogy right now. Say it now, say it now. So tell folks when we love them or when they make us mad. And to our fellow mammals make this vow. We won't procrastinate, no longer hesitate. We'll just communicate and say it now, right now. Say it now, say it now, anytime, anyhow. Grab the moment while you got it, let them hear it. say it now. How you feeling? Just set it free. Don't wait till it's a eulogy right now. Say it now, say it now. Say it now, say it now. Anytime, anyhow. Grab the moment while you got it, let them hear it. Say it now. How you feeling? Just set it free. Don't wait till it's a eulogy right now. Say it now, say it now. Right now. Say it now. Say it now.
Wow. I'm going to say this right now.
Anything you want.
I'm going to say this right now. You better come back on this show sometime real soon, buddy.
Today, later?
Well, no, not later today, but real soon.
Thanks. Sounds good to me.
Jon Gailmor, everyone. The guy sitting next to me who is so remarkably talented. I'm just going to read off the first sentence or two off your website, which I think kind of sums it up. Songs to make people feel alive. Music for humans, prenatal through prehistoric, spanning the entire emotional spectrum. Humor and audience involvement are integral parts of any Jon Gailmor performance. That's it right there, man.
Well, I don't want to leave anybody out, JD.
Yeah.
I want to include everyone, and whatever I do has a message as well. I can't help myself.
Yeah.
I've tried to write songs that are just totally fun and frolicsome, it's a word now, and just don't mean anything. But I can't do it, and I learned that from my dad.
Wow. Welcome to Aired Out.
Great to be here. Thanks for asking.
I'm so happy that you're here. I was just telling you a little while ago that when I knew I was going to do this podcast, I was sitting in a parking lot, and I was on the phone with Chad Hollister, and he's like, he says to me, grab a pen and start scribbling this down right now as fast as you can, because Chad, he's got to,
sure.
When he's rapid fire, you got to try to keep up with him. Grabbed a pen and the back of an envelope, and he's like, I'm going to start dropping names, write these down. Jon Gailmor was one of the first names that he said for musicians that have to come on Aired Out. So I am so thrilled that you're here.
Well, I'm flattered that Chad would mention my name. He's one of my favorites.
Well, I saw a photograph of you, the same photograph that I have seen since the late 90s, that's pinned up at the wall at the Radio Vermont group at WDEV up there upstairs, which, of course, you've been such a huge part of local radio. Who is Jon Gailmor? Where are you from? What's your family like? What's your story? I know I'm asking you some broad questions here, but who the heck is Jon Gailmor?
Once upon a time.
Yeah. What year? What year?
1948.
There you go.
It was a huge year for me. Or as Bernie would say, huge year for me.
Oh my God.
Not only was I born at that moment, but there was a presidential campaign going on, too. And it wasn't Truman and it wasn't Dewey. It was Henry Wallace.
All right.
Who ran for president on the Progressive Party.
Wow.
And my father was one of his speechwriters and his main fundraising speaker. He would go on tour with Henry Wallace around the country.
Sure.
And he would make speeches at big arenas like Madison Square Garden, etc. And he was a mesmerizing speaker, my father. Was phenomenal. And he was so good that there developed a phenomenon called the Gailmor reflex, which was downright Pavlovian.
Oh my
and every time my father would get up to speak, people would reach for their wallets.
Wow.
And he didn't have to say anything. He'd just get up and they'd reach for it.
Yeah.
So he was great. And he taught me, as I alluded to earlier, he also taught me that you have to have a message. You have to have a reason for speaking or singing. And he would go out and he'd speak. He'd do public speaking. He did a lot of public speaking. And I'd always ask him, he never used notes. And I always asked him, how are you going to bridge the gap between your publicized title of your speech and your agenda? the message you want to bring.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't know, but it will happen.
Yeah.
So we always found a way to do that, and taught me that you gotta change the world in your own way and have a message, and just do the right thing, as Spike Lee would say.
So you live up in Elmore with your wife, and you've raised 3 kids.
3 kids. Yep, got 2 daughters and a son, and a magnificent wife. And we live in Elmore. We've lived there since 1980.
Wow. So when did you pick up the guitar? What's the story with the guitar and becoming a singer and songwriter? And
all right, I'll take you through.
yeah.
I was brought up I haven't really grown up, but I lived at a certain point in Connecticut, in Westport, Connecticut, back when it was a town of 27,000 and a nice little New England village.
Yeah.
Not anymore, but
no, not at all.
But it used
to
be.
Westport.
Yeah, and
all those towns up and down the coast there.
Fairfield County, and so it used to be a really cool place, unaffected, and just a really neat place. And I used to go to a lot of hootenannies, as they were called back then. We'd go to people's houses, and we'd sit around and sing old Weaver's songs and Pete Seeger songs, and so we'd all bring guitars or ukuleles, and so I got a ukulele and took some lessons. Started out on a ukulele when I was about 7 or 8, and never practiced, but I played when I felt like it, and then I got a guitar. Took lessons for 1 year to learn the chords. This is when I was 15, and took over from there. And once I had all the chords down, the basics, I took over. And I'm going to fast forward up to 1977.
Okay.
Because, well, no, I'll rewind now a little bit. To 1970, I graduated from college.
All right.
I taught elementary school in Philadelphia, which I went to college to, in South Philly, because everyone was telling me I should be an elementary school teacher. So I was trying to please other people, including my family and everyone else. So I realized 2 things. One, I'm not wired to go to the same place every day, do the same thing. And B, I also went to Temple University grad school in elementary ed. 1 semester of that, and I just thought it was pretty absurd that you can learn how to teach by taking courses, and you can't.
Yeah.
You don't learn how to teach until you're in front of kids.
Yeah,
kids
sure.
teach you how to teach.
Sure.
As the song said.
Amen.
Yeah. So I went to Europe. My sister, bless her heart, 7 years older than I am, said, get out of here. You need to go far away and find yourself. So I went to Europe, 1971, and for 2 months, hitchhiked. For 7 months, hitchhiked through 14 countries, picking grapes in France, making authentic Greek jewelry in Athens. I was hired by the guy in charge of the tourist place in Athens, the Plaka, they called it. And I made jewelry. He gave me all this stuff to make it with, and I made Greek jewelry. So somewhere in Cleveland, a woman is wearing one of my necklaces, thinking it was made by someone named Stavros. But no, it was made by a Jewish kid from Philly and New York,
what a story.
John. So, but anyway, hitchhiked and met a guy from college who was a musician, and he was a great guitar player and a decent vocalist, and I'm a decent guitar player and a better vocalist. That's my strength. So we were compatible, and we hitched through the French Alps, bought a couple of cheap guitars in Paris, hitched through the French Alps, getting a repertoire together, and ended up in Cannes, France, on the Mediterranean. Started singing in cafes for tourists. Met a beautiful American girl who served as our hat passer. Very shrewd. So here we were singing Beach Boys, Joni Mitchell, James Taylor, stuff tourists really wanted to hear, who were homesick and wanted to hear this stuff. And this beautiful woman was saying, please contribute to. So we made enough to split it 3 ways and stay in hotels and have all our meals. So I had this revelation because I was never happier than when I was entertaining people in front of an audience, entertaining and singing to people, and I was in heaven. And I was making money. Are you kidding? You mean you can make money being this happy? I mean, it seemed a little un-American to me.
What'd you do for that first 7 months, though, when you weren't making any coin?
Well, I took out all the money I had, both pennies, and I had other jobs in Europe, like making Greek jewelry and ironing sheets and washing dishes in Athens, and picking tomatoes on Crete, the island of Crete.
Yeah.
I picked tomatoes, just made enough to have meals and stuff. And then we started doing this, got back to the United States, and started a solo career because I said, I got to do this. And the reason I said it sounded un-American is because the summer before that, I worked at an ad agency in New York in the mailroom. I was commuting from Westport to New York City every day. And I'm witnessing the misery on the faces of every commuter I saw.
Oh, yeah.
And all these guys and women who hated their jobs and didn't like their homes all that much and just spent all the time in the bar car on both ways, morning and night. And they were miserable. And I said to them, I witnessed this on their faces and how miserable they were. And I said, I don't want to do this. So that was a big influence on me. I'm not going to be miserable.
Yeah.
So then I got back and started a solo career in 73 or so. And first job was in Westport at a restaurant. And I was in the middle of my first song, and the owner came up to me in the middle of the song and did his index finger across his neck. I had to quit because somebody called a bomb scare in.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. First number of my solo career, someone calls a bomb scare. The headline, Gailmor bombs in Westport. You can just see that.
God.
So, meanwhile, my whole family tree and everyone I'd ever known was there. And everybody had to leave while the cops came and canvassed the place and searched for the bomb. No bomb. So
Did you keep playing in the parking lot, or?
No, I came back and played. My mother came back.
All right.
And so I played for her. A few people came back too. So that was an inauspicious start to my solo career.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I don't believe in omens.
Yeah.
So then I shortly thereafter realized I was not cut out to be a soloist at this particular moment.
Yeah.
So there was this high school friend of mine named Rob Carlson, and the two of us had sung at parties, occasionally high school parties, and we realized that there was something going on musically, some chemistry there. And we loved singing together, so we said, let's try this. And he had gone to Brown University. I had gone to Penn. So I was not ready to be a soloist, and he was kind of fried on rock and roll. He was in bands. We said, let's get together. So we did, and we formed a duo for 2 years, Carlson and Gailmor. And we toured the country and got involved with the New York City music business, and they had a thing called the Campus Coffee House Circuit, which sent us to colleges around the country. And that was really cool, singing for college kids.
Yeah.
And
What decade are we talking about at this
we are
point?
talking about the mid-'70s, early '70s, and early
Good
to mid.
times.
And so we sang in colleges. It was great. And then we got a record deal
Yeah.
with Polydor Records in New York City. And
As a duo.
As a duo.
Wow.
And, it was the decade of the duo. It was the Seals and Crofts and
Simon and
Simon and Garfunkel and all those duos. Every label had a duo. Polydor had us. So we made this album, and I have a song about that. I'm not going to sing it today, but it's called "Gotta Have a Hook," and it was all about that record deal.
Yeah.
And because we recorded our parts. We were kind of studio musicians. We recorded our guitar and piano parts and vocals. And then they said, see ya, hope you like it. And that's when they hired the big guns, Eric Weisberg, on tuba, and just all these great, I mean, really talented and top of the line Saturday Night Live band stuff, people to do the rest of the instrumentals. And then we got the albums in the mail in a box, and sure sounded good. It was a sweet sounding album, whoever that was.
Oh my God.
But I mean, the crux of it is our vocals were our main selling point. Sure. Well, they mixed those vocals pretty far down because they wanted to be a showcase for their studio musicians. Uh-huh. And it's a nice sounding album, but it's not what we did actually. So we toured to support the album, and my partner was willing to do anything to keep up, be successful financially, and I was repelled, and I thought this whole music, the sleaze bags we were dealing with, I couldn't do it. I felt like a prostitute. Yeah. So I said, that's it. I'm done. I'll tour for the album, and then that's it. So we broke up, and then I went to Europe again for 2 years with my girlfriend.
Picking tomatoes and grapes, or
same kind of stuff, yeah. And came back and said, I'm going to try this again. Now I'm ready to be a soloist. So I remembered something about Vermont because Rob and I had sung in Vermont, various places, Sugarbush, Killington, as part of our touring, and there was something different about Vermont. Couldn't put my finger on it. Something drew me. There was something intangible, but something very different from any place I'd ever been. So I said, we got to try to move there. So we drove. The idea was to drive to Burlington, where UVM was, gigs,
Sure.
College town.
Sure.
Well, we got tired in Montpelier. This is 1977, February 24th.
Ouch.
We got tired in Montpelier. We pulled over, stayed in what was called the Lackey's Tourist Home back then, right on Lower State Street. I'm not sure what it is now, but we stayed there, and we drove around and fell in love with Central Vermont. So moved to East Montpelier.
In February
24th, 1977. And so Central Vermont became our home. That's where I started. Moved to this house right next to East Montpelier Elementary School. Started playing gigs for almost nothing, which is how you start. First gig was at the parking lot in Barrie, right here in downtown Barrie. The parking lot, it was called. It was on Summer Street, and it was in the parking lot. And it was a place where musicians play and test their commitment.
Is this right over by the church?
I don't even remember. In the back road.
Yeah, could be some condos over there now.
Maybe, but it was an interesting place. I remember one St. Patrick's Day singing Danny Boy 12 times. So it was a good, how badly do I want to do this for a living? It's one of those things. And but I did it, and then I played at MJ Fridays in Montpelier, which became Julio's, which became Black Door, and played at all sorts of clubs that eventually went out of business. That was my legacy, really. Wow. Initially, was putting clubs out of business. I did it to Hunt's in Burlington. I did it to Fox Hill in Waitsfield, the Mill in Moortown. Just, it's just litany of clubs that went out of business because they had Jon Gailmor there. And so then one night I was at Top Notch Hotel in Stowe singing, being my immature self. And this woman heard me and between sets brought me over to her table and said, would you ever consider singing for kids? So, and this is about 1979. And I said, well, I could try. And so she set up a Saturday morning shindig in her screened porch for the neighborhood kids. And it worked. It was a lot of fun. Kids had a good time. I had a great time being myself. And so then, WNCS in Montpelier had a show called Live at the Depot. And it was singers, folk singers, singer-songwriters would come in And I said to them, would you ever want to try? I did one for grown-ups, and then I said, would you ever consider trying one for kids, a live show for kids? And they said, sure. So we did that, and it was wonderful, and the kids came from all over central Vermont. Then I said, you know what? Would you ever consider doing a radio show for kids? Because I love radio, and I was brought up with radio. My father was a broadcaster. So they said, sure. Good for them for being open to new crazy ideas.
Sure.
That's when Just Kidding started, the show called Just Kidding. August 29th, 1979 was the first show.
Wow, man.
On WNCS in Montpelier. And it was fun. And the whole purpose of the show was to celebrate childishness.
Yeah.
And it was unscripted.
Yeah.
And kids, when I went to schools, I would ask kids questions about life.
Yeah.
And catch them off guard and catch them being children.
Like what?
Like, what do you think of this war in the Middle East? You know, or what do you think? Asking questions about current events.
Yeah.
Or what do you like to do? What's your favorite thing to do in the world? You know, got brothers and sisters? You get along with your brother?
Yeah.
You know, stuff, real questions.
Oh,
not,
sure.
Art Linkletter used to do that. Some really good stuff in the old days.
And real honest answers, too, I'm sure.
Yeah, and kids, so it was a celebration. I'd play songs, recorded songs of other people. I'd just mix a lot of things into the show. But mostly it was kids were the stars.
Sure.
And so then I started singing in schools. And that was fun. I got involved with the Vermont Council on the Arts, which became the Vermont Arts Council, and got on their roster for kids in schools. And I started seeing kids every time I went to a school. I'd see them out on the playground or in the sandbox singing songs that they were making up on the spot. And they were singing about their lives, and they were singing about their dog, and they were singing about this truck in the sandbox.
Oh, sure.
And I said, whoa, wouldn't it be cool to figure out a way to take this instinctive thing kids do and teach them how to make them viable, make them into viable songs? So I proposed the idea to a school, and they said, sure. I mean, all my life I've been fortunate to have people and institutions and organizations that are open to crazy ideas.
Yeah.
So they said, sure. And so I went to a school, and I started meeting with classes and helping them write original songs. And that has evolved over the years so that now all I do is ask questions. And the kids create lyrics.
Yeah.
And they're all theirs.
Yeah.
I just ask follow-up questions. Everything I say to them is a form of a question. So they are the experts and I'm the idiot.
Sure.
They teach me about the subject. Then I take my guitar out after they have written lyrics and a chorus and verses, and I choose a key, developmentally appropriate key, and so we sing scales. So they're thinking in that key, and then I say, "Who can sing this first line? Anybody sing? Okay, you try." And some brave soul will inevitably sing the first line. Just sing the line, whatever comes into their minds for a melody, and that's the first line of the melody. And then it starts building, and before long we have a song. Different verse, different melody for the chorus. Lessons come from the process, not vice versa. We start right in. Someone will say an alliteration, for instance. And I'll say, why does that sound so good? Babbling Brook. Boy, that sounds great. You know what that is? That's an alliteration. I'll put it on the board. We'll spell it. We'll talk about alliteration, how cool it is. Give me another example, kids. And then later in the songwriting, if I say, we could use an alliteration here. Somebody will say, okay, let's do that. I mean,
kind of like Mad Libs.
Yeah. It's a real organic and ongoing process, and they start to get the hang of it, and their eyes start to change when they get the feel of it, and they say, we're writing a song.
Yeah.
This is we're creating this thing. So then by the time I've had 2 sessions with them, there's a song. It's a beautiful song. I make a CD for them to keep in their classroom to practice with. And then we have an evening performance where parents come, relatives come, and hear the kids singing their songs that they have created.
That is so
totally
cool. So cool.
And that moment, and parents go, "Whoa, my kid contributed to that."
Yeah.
And kids are so proud. Parents say, "I've never seen my kids sing with such gusto and commitment and ownership." Ownership is key. Talk about primal need.
So now you bump into adults, I'm sure, and they say, "Oh gosh, I remember when you came to our school when I was in whatever grade," and that's got to feel pretty cool.
It's gratifying. At the culminating performances of these songwriting residencies, invariably parents will come up, some guy in his 40s. "You came to my school when I was in 2nd grade. We wrote the song about the turtle and the tuxedo." And there are times he will sing. He or she will sing.
Isn't that?
"The turtle had a bow tie."
Oh my God.
You know, I mean, because
That's
not
so
many people get a
remarkable.
chance to create beauty,
Yeah.
a beautiful song, and sing it in public and get cheered for something they created. I never got that chance. I wish I had.
I'll be in the car sometimes driving, and my little girl, who's 4 years old now, will be behind me in her car seat, and she's just in her own little world, looking around. She's not really sure, where we're going or what we're doing, but she'll start humming a song.
How old is she?
4.
4.
She'll start singing a song, and she'll just start making up lyrics, and almost if I had to guess, maybe once or twice a week, Sherilyn will hit the camera on the cell phone and hold it up over the shoulder and videotape little Lily in the car seat in the morning, rocking out on the way while she's bringing her to daycare. And I think yesterday morning it was Foreigner, Feels Like the First Time, and she was just belting it out. Got all the lyrics. I mean, it's just
Kids do that.
it's amazing.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. And
I mean, they're such sponges. They can learn so quickly, and they hear something, it goes in the head, and it gets recorded in there, and it's not being tangled up with all of the other distractions that we have as teenagers and young adults.
and they're fearless.
Yeah, sure.
And up to a certain age, it's cool
Right.
to be spontaneous
Sure.
and to be childish.
Yeah.
And then one of the things I try to convince people, because I do it, I do pre-K,
Yeah.
these residencies through high school.
Yeah.
And one of the bigger challenges is when you get to middle school or even before,
And some
upper
kid comes
elementary.
along and says, "Why are you wearing that?" or "Why are you saying that?" or singing that.
Yeah, or
And that's the end of it.
they get self-conscious.
Self-conscious.
Because it's not cool, or they think it may not. And that's why when I go into a school, the first thing I do is sing a song in each class, one of mine, which hopefully breaks the ice and lets them know that it's okay to make a fool of yourself.
Yeah, of course.
It's okay. Just have a good time and don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Kids will envy you for being who you are.
Sure.
And just have fun and enjoy this. Life's too short to be cool.
I remember so well when I first started working at WDEV in the 90s. I was new to everyone and everything, and just trying to cut my teeth in radio a little bit. And I remember being upstairs, and I was told that my boss was going to be this dude over here with the white hair, Jack Donovan. And I remember Jack. I remember standing there at the desk where the Wall of Fame is behind there. And I remember Jack saying, do you know him? Do you know him? And everybody was up there. Jimmy T and Jamie Lee Thurston and everyone else. George Woodard, and the list goes on. And he said, that dude right there is Jon Gailmor. And I said, what is, I said something like, what does he play, or what does he do? And his answer was, he changes the world. And he also said, you're going to be engineering his, you're going to be pushing the buttons on his show, I think which was on, wasn't it Saturday mornings, I think?
Oh, just kidding?
Just kidding. I think that was Saturday mornings, wasn't it?
I used to make a reel-to-reel tape and bring it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I used to take that reel-to-reel and feed it through the Ampex reel-to-reel, which was in that little studio booth right next. There was two of them in there, and these were like washing machines. Wonderful. And feed it through there, and oh God,
I still use one.
Those days, man. And
well, Jack,
what are you going to do if the motor burns out on that thing?
I'll find another one.
You'll find another one. eBay.
Yeah, absolutely.
God, you remember the sound of those motors when they get spinning? I know I'm getting off track.
No,
here, but I mean, it was like a rocket.
It's a great sound, just like sound of scratching.
Yeah.
The sound of scratched vinyl is a wonderful sound.
Oh yeah.
I'm a real analogical fan.
You still have one of those, though?
What, a turntable?
No, you still have a reel-to-reel?
Oh, I use it.
You cut tape with a razor?
I don't. No, I don't splice. I just use it. No, I take it all.
That's fantastic.
But I use that, and because I'm very old school. In fact, well, I'm old, so obviously I'm old school.
How old are you?
70.
All right,
and a half.
So one of the questions, and I know we're kind of rambling here, but that's what the show's about. One of the questions I have is, you said 70?
And a half.
70 and a half. So who's going to replace Jon Gailmor? Where are the kids going to?
Oh, you know what?
There's a few out there.
There are some really wonderful performers.
Gentleman with the flying guitar is outstanding, too.
I don't.
Chris with the
Mr. Chris, right?
Yeah, with the purple flying guitar, does a hell of a job.
Yeah,
connects well with the kids. But
see, I don't have a gimmick.
Yeah,
I'm not against gimmicks. If whatever helps you, but I would so much rather go into the trenches and be one of them,
right? And
sit down with them and just make them feel important.
Yeah.
And listen to them. That's at the crux of the songwriting thing, is not just ownership on their part, but listening to them hard and honoring their every thought.
Yeah.
Because kids have so much to teach us.
Sure they do.
And how are we going to learn if we don't listen? Man,
is that so true?
They make my life so rich, and they make me so much better just by talking. And
I guess my point is it just seems like so many singers and songwriters who are trying to penetrate into the business, they try to go from 0 to 60 in 1 second, and seem to maybe forget about the kids. We all want to be rock stars and get that recording contract and be up on a big stage with a huge crowd that's cheering us on. But what about that guy? What about that Jon Gailmor that's visiting schools and doing private parties and house parties and birthday parties and having fun with kids? I hope there's going to be another Jon Gailmor.
Well, I'm not worried about that, and I'm not thinking about that. I want to live a long time, for one thing, and I want to keep doing this.
Yeah. As
long as people will have me.
Yeah.
And I learned a long time ago that if you do the right thing and are honest to yourself, and that's why that decision about the big time was so pivotal in my life, because that was the first real crossroads,
train ride,
major crossroads.
The train ride epiphany. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about, I don't know the train ride epiphany.
Well, when you were just saying you're all the miserable faces on the train.
Oh, that. Well, that was, yes, that was an epiphany indeed. That was it. And then the big time music business.
Yeah.
The decision I had to make. And nobody understood. My own mother thought I was wrong.
Yeah.
She goes, moms want their son to be successful,
right,
make a lot of money, and we were on our way. We were singing in great places, and but I couldn't do it. I didn't want to, have a nice house in Scarsdale or somewhere and look back on my life and realize I had sold out. I just couldn't do it.
I can't tell you how many times, and I know there's so many folks that would share this sentiment, that I have walked into a school auditorium or a gymnasium or outdoors, a spring or summer festival or fall festival, and I hear your music. I recognize that voice right off. And how many times I've seen that without being a dad for so many years. And now to walk into a venue or a school gymnasium, and there he is, Jon Gailmor, still performing and playing his guitar. And now I've got a little 4-year-old girl who is magnetized to you just as so many of the other kids are. They gravitate towards you and they stand there and listen to you almost like they're in a trance. You're so entertaining to them. It's not just lyrically that they can understand you, but it's the energy that you put in to see all these toddlers stand there and stare at you and watch you perform.
It's my clothes.
Well, I mean, there's the trademark vest. This is true, but one of the shows was at the Sheraton Hotel, I think, that I saw you, and it was an event. I can't even remember what it was, but we were there, and I think that was the first time that Lily had been there to see you. And man, she wanted no part of the face painting or the bouncy house. She wanted to stand there and watch you perform. That was at the Sheraton. And then just a few weeks ago at the Vermont Life Read for Life event, which Readathon. I don't know how many years you've been doing that, but man, look at the crowd, the kids. I mean, I felt like getting on the mic and saying, "Hey, kids, don't forget to read the books. Come on, read the books." I mean, you're so captivating. There's something about you that draws in, as your website says, all kinds of audiences, all kinds of age groups.
All I can say is my style has always been to make audiences feel important and a part of me.
Yeah.
And I am grateful to them. And with kids, I sing to them. I don't just sing to the cosmos or out into the air.
Right.
I look at them and I sing to them.
I see that.
And I want them to know how much I care for them.
Yeah.
And
and they dance, and they're dancing and moving around.
I mean, it's
all
just
part of it.
Got to do that, and I'm like that with grown-up audiences too, and I don't want to get pigeonholed as the kids performer, Jon Gailmor, because
but I got to tell you, Sherilyn and I loved sitting and watching you a few times, because every now and then, when you stop down and you speak to the kids, you'll throw in a couple of subliminal slams at mom and dad, which are so justified.
Well,
so entertaining and true.
And I have a lot to say to grown-ups.
Yes, you do.
And
yes, you do.
So no matter whom I'm singing for, I'll throw out a joke or two that kids, I don't care if they get it or not. At least some of the grown-ups will get it.
Of course.
And I did first 10 years, as I mentioned earlier, were singing in bars.
Yeah.
And
but you'll still get out and perform.
Oh, I do the occasional
in the very adult
resorts.
Settings. Yeah.
And coffee houses and clubs, singer-songwriter venues, because I have that bar repertoire.
Yeah.
And not just the bar repertoire, but the grown-up repertoire. And I've written songs for grown-ups.
And you haven't forgotten those songs.
No, and I have to remember to practice them, though. It's names that I've forgotten,
Yes, right.
Stanley.
That's all right, Bill.
Stanley. But, and I do impressions, which reminds me.
Yeah.
That was my...
So do you have a Trump impression?
Oh, God, I was
what do you do?
hoping-
What give me a good one.
I don't do that one.
Yeah.
I do that in other ways, but
Yes.
not verbally. Well, okay, I'll do the ones. I'll do the ones that I sometimes
And they get
do.
incorporated into the guitar?
Some of them,
Yeah.
but I.
And does this drive your wife crazy, these impressions? Are you
are
you guys cooking dinner at home and you're breaking
I
into
don't
one?
do them at home.
Oh, okay.
I want to eat. You know. I want to.
Do we have an album coming
a
out
relationship
of just the impressions?
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay, all right.
No.
All right.
And if you call in the next 5 minutes, you'll get a dial tone. So now here's I'll do one. Here's Richie Havens.
Yeah.
Remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Richie Havens.
Yeah.
By the way, let me preface it by saying I used to play at Hunt's in Burlington,
Yeah.
which is probably the best club in the history of clubness.
Yeah.
Lower Main Street. Hunt's. R.W. Hunt's, I think Mill and Mining Company was the full name of it. If you ask any performer of my age who are still alive, they will tell you that was the finest club ever. It was amazing. It was run by a guy named Chico Lager, who went on to be, I think, president of Ben & Jerry's, and really had a lot to do with Ben & Jerry's becoming the scrupulous and socially conscious and wonderful company it is. Anyway, I also met my wife there, which holds a soft spot for me. But at Hunt's, I opened for Richie Havens one night. So we're sitting back there in the green room, which was, I think, yellow. And we're sitting back there and we're talking about his roots, Greenwich Village. It's where and we start talking about Fred Neil, as in, everybody's talking at me, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Fred
Yeah.
Neil. And he loves Fred Neil, and he said, did you ever hear this song? And he mentioned the name of a song, and I said, no. So he takes out Richie Havens, icon, hero of Woodstock.
Yes.
Comes out, he takes out this yellow legal pad, and he writes down all the words to this song for me, and all the chords, and gives it to me. Richie Havens.
You still have that?
I wish I did. I don't know what happened to it, but, I mean, this guy, I'm a nobody, and this guy, he is as kind and caring and giving as you think he is from his music. And he was just like that. I mean, he just, I'll never forget that. So, and then he went out and sang this. And as I tell audiences, if you've never heard of him, just take my word for it. This is exactly what he sounds like. Morning, morning, feel so lonesome in the morning. Morning, morning, ooh, morning brings me grief. And that's the extent of that one. No, don't encourage it. Now, another one I do is I try to keep them in the same genre. So I do David Brinkley.
Yeah.
Used to be a newscaster.
Sure.
NBC with Chet Huntley.
Yeah.
You know, remember the Brinkley Havens Report? Anyway, this is David Brinkley singing Act Naturally.
All right.
There, put me in the movies. There, the star, me. A fool, a man, sad and lonely. All I gotta do is act naturally. And so, that's that one.
Well, what about Bob Dylan? You must
I
have
don't
been
do
a
Bob
fan.
Dylan, but I do someone similar to Bob Dylan, which is Bullwinkle Moose.
Yeah.
Bullwinkle was a huge Bob Dylan fan. Not only that, but he was a huge Jim Morrison fan, which is why, I mean, he had Jim Morrison's poster all over the woods and around my house. And that's why I chose to do Bullwinkle singing "Light My Fire."
Oh yes, this is going to be good.
Appropriate. The time to hesitate is through. There's no time to wallow in the mire. Try now, we will only lose, and my love become a funeral pyre. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, honey, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire.
Beautiful.
Yeah, well, that's you don't see that too often with singer-songwriters.
Of course.
And that's why. So it catches people off guard, and they applaud politely. And you know, every time I do it in a restaurant or something, I hear, "Check, please." So yeah. So I love singing for grown-ups, house parties, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where I can sit around in somebody's living room and do what we're doing, and just.
But you prefer the one-on-one connection. You'd rather have that than bring 3 or 4 guys with you.
Yeah, I was a duo, part of a duo for 2 years, and it was great. And it really helped me get ready to be a performer.
Sure.
I learned not to be afraid, and some confidence, and but I love being a soloist.
What's the biggest stage that you've performed on?
Probably the Academy of Music in Philadelphia, and that was wonderful. Oh, also Madison Square Garden. That was with my Glee Club at Penn. They call it Glee Clubs back then. We were gleeful, and.
They still do, I think.
I know.
They?
But solo, the Academy of Music and some big arena. I don't even remember, but big places. Not a lot, because I don't like them. And I mean, I don't mind singing to thousands of people, but I would much rather sing to a 50, 75 in an intimate little place where the light's not shining in my eyes and I can see faces.
Sure, right.
I have to see faces.
Yeah. So how many albums now?
Well, I've got
6 or 7 or something like
I've
that?
got one with my partner, and then 6 solo. Yeah.
And you can get them where? I know you're on iTunes. But.
Great question.
iTunes,
Spotify, YouTube. You can't get them. I mean, you can.
Right.
I guess you can. You download from Spotify? I guess you can.
Yeah.
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 And there's this great organization called CD Baby, which
Sure.
That's kind of the mother organization, the parent organization that keeps all my stuff out there. And but I mean, if you ever want to hear anything, just go to YouTube and search on my name.
What have been some musicians in Vermont that have had a great impact on you? Musicians that you've performed with or recorded with, worked with?
All of them.
What great studios have you been in around Vermont?
You know, the studio I've used most. I've used a few, but Chuck Eller has been a part of that whole thing. And he's in Mexico now. He has a studio in Mexico, who's not paying for the wall. And so I don't know if I'll be going down there, but he is just such a remarkable musician, keyboard guy and studio engineer. So I did a couple of them in his studio in Charlotte. Yeah. First one was at Philo Records in Earth Audio Techniques was the name of the studio in up there in whatever that little town is up there.
Ferrisburg?
Yes,
whatever.
thank you.
Yeah,
North Ferrisburg, Ferrisburg. And so that was fun. But musicians, I mean, Vermont is such a treasure trove, as you know, of incredible musicians. I mean, you know, people like Paul Asbell. I mean, we have world-class musicians.
Sure we do.
We have Paul Asbell. We have Chuck
every
Eller.
genre.
Every genre.
Yeah, all over the place.
Doesn't matter. Percussion, bass. My God.
Who was the? I'm drawing a blank here on his name, but he was so tremendous. He did a great song called "Dig Deep." Help me out, John.
Keyboard?
Yes, keyboard player.
Andy Shapiro.
Andy Shapiro.
Yeah, oh, God, what a
Yeah,
loss.
man. When we lost him, that was
And he
huge.
plays on one of mine, and what a sweetheart of a guy.
Oh, yeah.
And keyboard. The guy was born inside a keyboard,
Andy
I think.
Shapiro.
He was tremendous. Yeah, Andy.
God,
Fabulous.
what was it? He passed away, what, 15 years
Oh,
ago?
God,
something
yeah,
like that?
yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah. And, I mean, people of all, and not just music either.
Yeah.
Dancing. Well,
Oh,
many
yeah.
of them are refugees from the big time
Yeah.
who have made serious choices
Yeah.
for quality of life over quantity and money.
Yeah.
And so we are blessed in every artistic genre: painters, sculptors.
Well, you
dancers.
walk down the cobblestones there on Church Street Marketplace, and there's a statue of Big Joe Burrell.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, come on.
beautiful. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Tammy Fletcher, Jamie Lee Thurston.
I mean, these are
the
people-
list goes on.
these
and
are
on.
people, as good and better than the ones who are famous and making all sorts of money.
Yeah.
And how lucky we are to have them in our midst.
Yeah. Few of them sneak away from us and break through the border, but they seem to always come back to Vermont. Just seems that way.
Well, and I can understand it.
There's a few strays out there.
I mean, I travel a lot in my work, but I can't be away because these residencies take me, away for a week or two sometimes. And after about a week and a half, I start going through withdrawals
Sure.
because
Yeah.
it's different out there.
Yeah, I remember when Jamie Lee Thurston went to Nashville, and I just remember asking him, this was a long time ago, how is it there? And he's like, let me tell you, it's pretty wild, but the grass ain't greener on the other side. And man, did he missed Vermont. Always loves coming home to Vermont.
That is such a great moment. Flying home is really cool, especially you fly from Kennedy or wherever, New York, and all of a sudden there's buildings and buildings and buildings and buildings and buildings and buildings. And all of a sudden, no buildings.
There's nothing.
And then there's nothing until you see a silo.
Yeah,
Rhymes with philo, by the way.
Well, it does.
All of a sudden there's a single philo.
Yeah.
I said it again, single silo.
Yeah, and a couple cows.
And a cow. And
more
cows.
And then a big ass lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that lake.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're home. And what a moment that is.
Yeah, it is.
And driving, here's
deal.
a little anecdote. I once embarrassed the hell out of my wife and my mother in a club in Albany, New York. It was a coffee house. And I was about to sing my Vermont song. The song called Long Ago Lady, which I wrote about Vermont when I wanted to give back and express in music what Vermont has done for me. So I wrote that song, and I was introducing it to this little room of strangers, except for my mother and my wife, who wanted to be strangers after that. But I said to the audience, here's an example of my spontaneity, my strange, immature quirk. I said, when I come back to Vermont, when I drive back and I see that Welcome to Vermont sign, I said, it's like mother's breast.
Short.
Welcoming me back to the womb. And I look at my wife, and she's got her head down, and she's calling for a check.
Oh, God.
Got her head down. My mother is just staring at me. Like, I gave birth to that? So, but that's the way Vermont feels to me.
I gather that. You go from the blues of Massachusetts and you cross that border, it feels great every time.
I mean, there are wonderful people all over the country.
Yeah.
And great places and beautiful sights, but nothing compares to Vermont for feel and beauty and the whole package.
Yeah.
And priorities. It's the best, and I'll never leave.
JonGailmor.com to learn more, to find out where you're going to be performing next. You've got a schedule that's just still cranking along. By the way, what's wrong with the what you got a problem with the H and a problem with an E on the what's going on with that one?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not going to pronounce it, it's not Jon.
Okay.
It's not Gailmor. So, because then you'd have to have the accent grave at the Gailmor. No, it's just Jonathan is my real name,
right.
And so there's no H in Jonathan. Not my Jonathan. Some people do Jonathan with an H, and Gailmor. Oh, Gailmor. Here's another quick one. Gailmor is an anagram because my father went on the radio in New York, and his name was Margolis. That was his given name, Margolis, and he didn't like the way it sounded, so he took out his Scrabble game. And he took all the letters in Margolis and came up with Gailmor. It's a true story. Came up with Gailmor. And the S was left over, so he said, it'll be my middle initial.
Wow.
So his name was William S. Gailmor. That was his radio name, and then he liked it, so he had it changed legally, eventually. So Gailmor, it's fun to have people say, you must be Gaelic or something. You know, trying to guess, what are you anyway?
God.
People are often asking that.
If you remember him from Just Kidding, his show that's been on local radio and, of course, WDEV for a very long time, maybe you've been to one of his many performances with your toddler, or maybe you've just seen him anywhere. He is one definitely not to forget. I think the biggest thing I want to say to you is, man, are we blessed by God to have you in the Green Mountain state of Vermont. And I want to just say thank you for continuing to do what you do. Still, you make so many kids and adults happy everywhere. And I always look forward to seeing you perform live. And I beg of you to please come back on Aired Out at some point soon.
Thank you so much, JD. And it goes both ways because I feel blessed to have Vermont in my life and all of its amazing people, prenatal through prehistoric.
Yeah,
and
man.
Thanks for asking, buddy.
All right, brother. Yeah. It's Jon Gailmor, CBDcrave.com, one of our sponsors for the show, Aired Out. My podcast here, also Peak Entertainment of Vermont and New Hampshire, Fontaine Forestry and Millworks of East Montpelier, Fly on the Wall Productions, and CVTV Public Access, Channel 192 and 194, and online at cvtv723.org. I'm told Jamie Lee Thurston's going to be a guest on the show here very, very soon. Look forward to it. Make sure to like, to share, to comment, tell your friends, and subscribe. This is Aired Out. Thanks so much for being a part of it.